September 17, 1930, at 10 a.m., a dark blue Buick sedan, equipped with distinctive yellow wire wheels, came to an abrupt stop in front of the Lincoln National Bank in Lincoln, Nebraska. The vehicle resembled a police car, which led onlookers to assume its occupants were law enforcement officers. The northwest corner of 12th and O Streets was bustling with activity. The bank had just opened a mere 2 minutes earlier, even though its employees had been at their posts since 8 that morning. One man remained at the sedan's wheel while 5 others hastily disembarked and dashed into the Ganter building, where the bank occupied the ground floor. Upon entering the bank, they promptly ordered everyone to lie down on the floor. Some hesitated, wondering if the men were merely playing a prank. Shocked disbelief rippled through the room, as the notion of such an incident occurring in their quiet small town was inconceivable. While most of the bank's occupants were employees, a dozen customers who had entered early when the doors opened were scattered throughout the lobby. Assistant cashier J.T. Shields and his colleague Phil Hall found themselves singled out by one of the robbers. Hall reproached the intruder for disrupting business, only to be struck over the head with a gun. The sudden violence spurred everyone to obey, dropping to the ground. Another bandit forcefully entered the teller cages, compelling employees to the floor. To emphasize their seriousness, they brutally struck 2 employees, Wee Barkley and Marie Becker. The lobby now under their control, one of the men exited the bank and stationed himself at the street corner, his larger gun concealed beneath his jacket. With military precision, the intruders moved efficiently through the bank, their actions synchronized like a meticulously choreographed mission. Each man had a specific role, requiring no verbal instructions. Only the guard stationed at the front door issued occasional commands, directing their movements and making minor adjustments. Strangely familiar with the bank's layout, the bandits gathered all personnel from their offices and assembled them in the lobby, where they lay on the floor under close watch. There was no time for anyone to reach for a phone, except for Hazel Jones, responsible for the switchboard in the back of the building. With no knowledge of the robbery taking place, Hazel was startled when a robber pointed a gun in her face and ordered her to lie down on the floor. One of the intruders quickly made his way to the lower level, where 4 bookkeepers were engrossed in their tasks. Sterling Glover, one of the bookkeepers, later recounted the sudden interruption. "The first thing we knew, there was someone standing there pointing a gun at us and told us to put our hands up, and we thought it was a joke. But when we saw the gun, we knew it wasn't a joke." Under the gunman's guidance, the bookkeepers were led upstairs and instructed to lie down. Amidst the chaos, Bank President W.A. Selleck emerged from his office, encountering the surreal scene unfolding in the lobby. Initially dismissing it as a playful prank, he approached the robbers with a light-hearted comment. They needed to allow real customers into the bank, he reasoned, assuming his friends had arranged an elaborate birthday surprise. However, his misjudgment had serious consequences. The robber swiftly struck him across the face, forcing Selleck to the ground. The robber then viciously dealt 2 more blows to Selleck's face. By this point, everyone in the bank had been compelled to lie face down on the cold marble floor. The bank was under their control within minutes of their entry. The watchful guard at the entrance threatened to shoot anyone who dared to rise, while another robber paced among the hostages, occasionally cursing and feigning a readiness to open fire. Amidst the chaos, one woman managed to slip away from the robber's watchful eyes, discovering an exit through a side door and successfully escaping. The scene outside remained eerily calm, as if completely disconnected from the unfolding turmoil within the bank. People continued to go about their daily routines, seemingly oblivious to the unfolding events. Even a patrolling officer named Elmer Beals wandered the vicinity, entirely unaware of the rapidly unfolding situation. It had all transpired so swiftly. Barely 3 minutes had elapsed since the commencement of the robbery. The woman who had managed to escape noticed a car idling by the curb. The driver remained unaware of her presence, as did the lookout positioned between the corner and the front door of the bank. Whenever someone approached, the lookout would swiftly open the car door, revealing his weapon, while the other robber would stealthily approach the person from behind and usher them inside, thus adding them to the growing pool of hostages. The escaped woman carefully crossed the street, moving towards safety. Sergeant Frank Towle was stationed at the downtown police department desk. A frantic voice on the telephone urgently informed Sergeant Towle, "For God's sake, come to 12th and O." Confused, Towle inquired, "Where?" The voice persisted, "Hurry to 12th and O. There's a robbery." Thinking it might be a prank call, Sergeant Towle disconnected the line. Nevertheless, he dispatched 2 officers to investigate the situation, partly to apprehend any potential pranksters. The officers he dispatched were Peter Myers, a juvenile officer who seemed scarcely older than the youthful troublemakers he typically dealt with, and Forrest Shapaw, an officer with more experience. They would have ordinarily used the department's sole squad car, but it was out of commission that morning. Consequently, Shapaw took a motorcycle, while Myers proceeded on foot. Upon Officer Shapaw's arrival at the bank, he initially encountered the lookout positioned on the corner. Shapaw pointed his motorcycle toward the man and approached to initiate a conversation. The man slowly revealed the lengthy metallic object he had concealed partially beneath his jacket. It turned out to be a Thompson submachine gun, an unusual sight in this region. The man gestured with the weapon, indicating for Shapaw to depart, and coldly instructed, "Just keep moving." Knowing his .38 revolver was no match for the well-armed criminal, let alone those fortified within the bank, Shapaw made no protest and promptly turned his motorcycle to continue down the road. Several other individuals who had parked their cars in front of the bank were also approached by the same armed man carrying the Tommy gun. He ordered them to remain inside their vehicles and issued threats of violence should they attempt to drive away. Within the bank, the robbers had come to terms with the absence of the assistant cashier, but remained determined to access the vault. Vice President Lewicart, in an effort to convince them otherwise, dispatched Florence Zeiser, the assistant trust officer, and Sterling Glover, a bookkeeper, to escort the bandits to the bank vault, thereby demonstrating its impregnability to anyone currently inside the bank. While 2 of the robbers shadowed Zeiser and Glover, the others kept a close watch on the people in the bank's lobby. Simultaneously, they plundered the teller windows and cashier's drawers, stuffing their bags with stacks of cash. Zeiser and Glover led the 2 bandits to the vault, although it appeared that the bandits were already quite familiar with its location. The outer door of the vault stood ajar, but the inner door leading directly into the safe with the time lock remained shut. Zeiser had ventured into the safe earlier, prior to the bank's opening, when the time lock was set to seal the safe at 10 a.m. At this point, the time lock should have engaged, rendering any entry impossible. She pressed down on the dial typically used to open the safe, intending to demonstrate to the men that it was immovable. However, to her astonishment, the dial spun freely and the door swung open wide. Somehow the time lock had either been deactivated or had never been engaged in the first place. Without hesitation, the robbers seized the opportunity and rushed inside, initiating a swift looting spree. Inside, they discovered securities valued at approximately $500,000, along with some silver, which they hastily stuffed into their bags. They demanded that Miss Zeiser open the cash vault, but she claimed she did not know the combination. One of the robbers, growing impatient, threatened, "Well, shoot her." Outside, Officer Peter Myers, unarmed and approaching the lookout on foot, was allowed to draw near before the lookout discreetly revealed his Thompson submachine gun and uttered, "Scram!" Myers, realizing he was unarmed and outmatched, retreated and walked away. Now, under suspicious surveillance, the lookout urgently relayed a message into the bank for the others to expedite their activities. Inside, the gang member stationed at the door signaled to the rest of the group that it was time to depart. They hastily gathered the remaining money and securities, stuffing them into their bags. Within the vault, the robber who had contemplated shooting Miss Zeiser instead instructed her to lie on the ground. She complied, and the robbers proceeded to collect their loot before swiftly exiting the bank. Back at the police station, Shapaw dismounted from his motorcycle and rushed inside, informing the department that the bank robbery was real and required significant backup. He hadn't been able to report the incident earlier due to the absence of a radio on his motorcycle. Every available officer quickly piled into 2 civilian cars and raced to the bank, unsure of how they would confront heavily armed gangsters armed only with .38 revolvers. They returned within 5 minutes of Chapaw's arrival at the scene, but by then, the bank robbers had vanished. They had exited the bank shortly after Myers's encounter, 4 of them laden with bulging bags on their backs, while the other 2 brandished their Thompson submachine guns menacingly to deter onlookers. As they sped away, the man in the front passenger seat rested his Thompson submachine gun against the window, a clear warning to anyone who might approach them. Approaching a red traffic light at the intersection of 12th and O, they halted, appearing strangely calm, as if they were not evading anyone. They turned right onto O Street, activating a police siren they had in their possession. Pedestrians and vehicles yielded the right-of-way as they raced down the town's busiest thoroughfare. After covering a block or 2, they made another turn and disappeared from view. The entire operation had unfolded in no more than 8 minutes from start to finish. Police officers immediately dispersed to search for them. A public alert was issued, and everyone was on the lookout for the getaway car, likely heading south since it led to the nearest state border. The vehicle bore Iowa license plates, making it somewhat more conspicuous. Multiple reports of sightings of the car poured in from the surrounding area, with conflicting accounts suggesting it had been spotted traveling in various directions. One account reported the car coming to a halt due to a flat tire east of town on O Street. At this point, the men received assistance from a farmer who admired their machine guns, which they outrageously claimed were hunting rifles. The search continued relentlessly throughout the day, with 2 airplanes dispatched to scour the flat, open prairies for any sign of the car. Authorities in every town along the Platte and Missouri rivers were alerted to block the bridges, effectively creating impassable borders to the east and west. Police in every town within a 200-mile radius of Lincoln were also put on high alert. However, as the sun set and night descended, it became increasingly evident that the bank robbers had successfully evaded capture. The 6 gangsters had gotten away with a staggering sum of $2.7 million, marking it as the largest haul from any bank robbery in the history of the world at that time. In the end, out of the initial group of 6 suspects, 3 found themselves in police custody. Tommy O'Connor and Howard Lee faced trial and were subsequently found guilty, receiving lengthy sentences. Meanwhile, Jack Britt underwent 2 trials but managed to escape conviction due to a hung jury. Gus Winkler, a member of Al Capone's notorious gang, struck a deal with County Attorney Max Towle, avoiding prosecution in return for his assistance in recovering $600,000 worth of the stolen bonds. The following year, Winkler met his demise in a Chicago gangland slaying. The identities of the last 2 robbers involved in the incident remained a mystery, and the rest of the stolen money was never recovered.